So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on the WIL Talk podcast today. I am so excited. I have Kelly Wendorf here visiting us from Santa Fe, New Mexico. Not visiting, but virtually with us.
I'm
So,
with you.
Kelly,
I'm with you.
welcome, Kelly. We're thrilled to have you.
Thank you, Vicki. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I've been excited to have this time with you for a long time now.
Well, we're thrilled that you're here. So I want to take just a second and just give some introduction as to your background so people have even more of a sense of who you are. So bear with me for just a second, everyone. And if you're on, if your video's on, if you can just please turn those off and make sure you're muted during this conversation, that would be terrific. And toward the end, we'll make sure and open it up so that everyone can ask their questions of Kelly as well. So thank you for that. So Kelly Wendorf is a mother and International Coach Federation Master Certified Coach. She specializes in transformative change. She's an author, a spiritual mentor, a horsewoman, which I love, and socially responsible entrepreneur. She's the founding partner of EQUUS. Am I saying that right, Kelly? EQUUS?
You are, yes.
Okay, awesome. Which is an innovative leadership development organization. And she runs that with her partner, Jay Scott. EQUUS uniquely combines, which I love this, neuroscience, systems, theory, contemplative wisdom, attachment theory, somatic processes, indigenous knowledge. I just listened to some wonderful things this week on from the indigenous community, and nature-based intelligence in its coaching and experiential leadership development approach. Kelly's work has been featured in such publications as Forbes, The Wall Street Journal, Huffington Post, Vogue, just to name a few. And, you know, she's been a real inspiration to many people and has been an inspiration for several award-winning documentaries. So Kelly, you've been busy.
I've been busy. I have. I'm getting tired just hearing all that. I'm like, whoo, I need a break.
Well, we are thrilled that you're going to share some of those experiences with us today on the podcast. And, you know, I know our audience is excited to just learn from you and, you know, really start to understand, you know, a little bit of your background and how did you even get involved in, you know, the EQUUS experience? Like, where did that come from?
Thank you. Well, so for any folks who don't know what the EQUUS experience is, the EQUUS experience is a kind of a body of work, a process that weaves all those elements in place that you spoke about, neuroscience and nature-based wisdom and contemplative wisdom, alongside the company of a herd of horses. And then we use that process to just liberate a lot of self-awareness and self-discovery and to really change habit patterns and belief patterns that keep people a little bit stuck where they are. So it's a coaching process, but it's very experiential and there's a lot that goes into it. Of course, you know, I didn't start out sort of working that way, but the seed of it was way back as a child. I was a super serious kid who was very concerned about the world. I think at 8 years old, I was a card-carrying member of Earth First. I, you know, dreamed of chaining myself to trees and saving the planet. And you know, Vietnam was happening and I was very worried about that. So at a very early age, I was really thinking these sort of existential questions of why are we here? What is this human existence? How can we be better humans? How can I be a better human? Are we really just stuck with this narrative of humanity and war and, you know, global destruction and destruction of our environment, or is there something better for us? So that was really something I thought about when I was very young. I was a nature kid, of course, so I spent my childhood on the back of a horse. And in those days, parenting was sort of benign neglect. You know, they just get home by 8, you know, right at dinner time. And so my horse and I had lots of adventures together. And so I grew up to be a horse trainer and had a riding school in my 20s and here in Santa Fe. And But I noticed this thing happened with horses and people that I was too young to be able to articulate, but I saw, young kids getting better grades, getting along better with their, siblings, becoming more confident, and my adult students were, if they were women, they were getting out of their toxic marriages, or they were becoming entrepreneurs, or they were leaving their desk job to do something fabulous. And this was happening because they were with the horses. But, what was that? So this spark of that, like what was happening between a person when they interfaced with a horse or with nature or the natural world, I would say that spark led me to a deeper exploration of that question. Okay, can we change? Can we grow? Can we transform? What are the conditions that it takes so that we can transform? Like, what were those conditions that happened when a woman suddenly woke up to the fact that she was in a toxic situation and needed to get out? Like, so I really wanted to learn about how to create those conditions. And I did what any red-blooded American girl would do with that question. And I went to India. I spent many years there with a teacher, just a lot of meditation and contemplation, and understanding the nature of the mind, of thought, of abiding in a place that's outside of those limited narratives and belief systems, and really understanding the importance of grounding oneself in presence, in beingness. I immigrated to Australia, met my Indigenous teacher, Uncle Bob Randall, who sort of grounded those principles of our relationship as humans to the natural world, and how spirituality is really a very embodied experience. It's about how we are in this moment with this body as it relates to our connection with all of life. Instead of this kind of disembodied, some God somewhere out there, and, trying to meditate to someplace, away from here.
Yeah.
The nature-based wisdom is much more like back down in and connected with in our natural belonging to others. So, I would say that was sort of the seed to the EQUUS experience. I trained to be a coach. And what I found, though, in the coaching environment was that what was missing was this experiential piece with nature, that cognitively we could learn a lot together, but people's entire body and nervous system needs to kind of learn and grow with our increased understanding of what we're capable of. So, when I came back to America about 8 years ago, I thought, well, what I'd like to do is pull people into a coach setting, a coach environment, but with the support of the experiential process, that, with horses, quite frankly, is really, really powerful, because you have these large nervous systems, which are the horses have, that positively influence our smaller nervous system. And nervous systems, and I'll way oversimplify here, but nervous systems are designed to feel one another and influence one another. This is why, you and I could walk into a boardroom and somebody's feeling, really tense, and we'll feel it, right? And we can actually be influenced by their stress, but we can also positively influence another toward grounded presence, calm, that sort of thing, which is, by the way, a real superpower as a lead mare, as a leader, a woman in business, is that we're naturally empathic. We can actually have enormous influence over conditions in the environment that we step into by being in a state of grounded presence, and all the other nervous systems around us will attune to that and get grounded too. And of course, when they're grounded and present, they're able to access more of their creative mind. So, and you don't have to tell anybody you're doing it. You're just, you're just doing you. So, yeah, the inner game. So that was yeah, so that is sort of how the EQUUS experience got to be.
That's awesome. So, yes, I read about Uncle Bob in your book, Flying Lead Change, and I'm just gonna, put that up here so everybody can see Flying Lead Change. Great book. Certainly, I couldn't put it down. Like I cocooned for a whole day and just absorbed all of it. And I said to Jill, like, whoa, this was amazing. But I have to share with you, as you were describing the experience of growing up, even your experience with horses, when I think about my own childhood, like where I most resonate was on my uncle's farm with the horses. And I would do anything to be able to be there with him and with the horses on weekends and summers. And what you helped me connect just now as you were saying it was, I never understood. Every time I go to the farm, even now as an adult, it's like I've come home. Like I'm fully just really anchored and grounded, and the smells, the just being around the horses, everything, it has such a profound impact. So thank you for sharing that, because you just helped me connect that dot.
Yeah, well, can I talk to you about that coming homeness feeling that you have? It's because it's very significant, actually. And by the way, this doesn't, for you and for me, it happens with horses on a farm. For others, it might be a mountain, a river, a stream, a tree, a favorite park, a bench overlooking a beautiful garden. It's that sense of connection that we feel when we're in a natural environment that resonates for us. And it's very important because when we're raised in the conventional culture that we're raised in as children, we are raised with and the culture that we live in now is a culture of disconnection. It's a culture of individualism. I'm separate from you. I'm separate from nature. I'm separate and different from, a tree, a dog, this person of color, that person who doesn't have a university degree. All of that separateness. What that does to us when we are born and as small children, it creates a sort of chronic sense of disconnect and anxiety and fear. We're not aware of it, of course, because we're born with it, we're living in it. But then we grow up to be adults who are still living inside that concept. We may cognitively think, oh, we're all one and we all belong. But our nervous system has been wired differently. Our nervous system has been taught to be activated by a sense of fear and disconnect. And this naturally keeps us being less innovative, less creative, less confident than we really could be. And this is across the board, every human being to different degrees, right? When we're in nature, our nervous system takes in information that says something different. And again, I'm way oversimplifying, but it says to our nervous system, you belong, you are safe, you are connected to the larger whole, you are perfect, you are free. That's what it's saying to our nervous system. So that coming homeness that you feel is your nervous system kind of like you have two strings on an instrument and you pluck one and the other one vibrates. That coming homeness is your nervous system resonating like a sympathetic string with that sense of connection and belonging. And if you actively spend time with that coming homeness by putting yourself in situations where you feel it and you let yourself kind of bathe in that, what you're doing is you're allowing your nervous system to get new information that's all about connection and belonging, which over time, if you do this as a practice, helps your brain to become more creative, more brilliant, more innovative, more confident. And all those limiting belief structures that you live by will start to diminish. This is why it's so powerful. And it's available whether you come here to EQUUS and play with the horses or whether you go out and actively hang out with, your favorite tree.
Yeah. No, I love what you just said and so agree with you. There's a few people on the call that we are tree lovers. We're tree huggers.
Nice.
But yeah, you just amplified that even more because, I'm not around horses as much now as I used to be, but water is another element that
Mm-hmm.
it's like my soul just craves that water. And you're right, the creativity is so much more natural, right? It's not a forced kind of, I got to sit down and do this. It's very much a natural, things flow, they come to you in a way that, when we're in the grind or on autopilot, that we don't have access to that, right? Because we
Mm-hmm.
block that thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Exactly. And so my hope with flying lead change and with our conversation right now is that, I shift instead of, going out in nature as a sort of choice of leisure because it feels good, to really shift it to its rightful place as an imperative for our well-being, as an imperative for our nourishment, to align ourselves with something greater that is going to help us as women, as parents, as professionals. That it's something that we do more often and very deliberately, so we can become more robust, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's awesome. Well, and so that kind of leads us into, how we take this invisible and make it more visible.
Mm,
So, sometimes we're aware, sometimes we're not aware, right? And so what what would be some ways that people could, experience that even more so to make things visible so that they have that heightened awareness to really, understand when they're in that, that frame of mind.
yeah, it's a great question. Well, and in the book, I talk about like the invisible. So, energy, intuition, serendipity, sort of the felt sense of something. These are all sort of things that exist, but they don't have tangibles. So, a lot of times people call them softer skills, but to me, the soft skills is where the real strength
Yeah.
is. So setting ourselves up to experience those more and validate those when they happen, to notice things. So, part of it is, I think, slowing down and having a practice to slow down on a regular basis. That the invisibles seem to show up when things are going slow, um, and and letting your imagination have a little bit of room to experiment. So, if you have a hunch about something, then kind of check it out and experiment and start to kind of engage with those things, engage with felt senses and knowings and the sense of connection, and just start to, you know, 2-3 minutes a day. It doesn't have to be a big deal. In the morning with your coffee, just drop into slowing down internally, noticing how your body responds to things. Um, it really happens in the body. So spending time in your body is kind of, I think, a doorway towards having a life and actively engaging with the invisibles.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, and you do have to get off the hamster wheel to be able to do that.
Hmm.
Right? Like
Yes.
the autopilot of just going through the motions does not allow you that opportunity to really hear or to know or even trust yourself that you know. So I love
That's
that you
right.
do that. Yeah.
Yeah. And if I were to wake up with my smartphone by my bed, and even before I get out of bed, like flip through and start looking at emails, and then get up and have a cup of coffee, and then read the news while and then drive to work, and then going straight to work, and then come home and have a glass of wine, and then make dinner, and then watch, Love Island, and then go to sleep. When am I gonna,
Yeah.
when am I gonna listen? So I love the word fidelity. I think it's such a great word to have a fidelity to our inner life, that there's a priority each day to make some time and space for this kind of tempo and this kind of listening.
Yeah. Yeah. And you owe it to yourself. You deserve
You,
it.
you owe it
Right?
to yourself. You owe it to, I mean, and the cost of not doing that is interesting to explore,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and
Mhm.
actually that leads me into, my next question is because I loved how in your book you talk about the importance of conservation of energy, right? And energy is so important. And, what is the cost to someone when they're not conserving that energy? And we're not speaking, for our audience, we're not speaking just physical energy. It's all of the energies that make us up. So what is the cost to people, and how do the horses feel that energy?
hmm Well, when you look at a herd of horses, so there's a really terrific emerging field called biomimicry. Biomimicry is the science of looking at natural systems and mimicking them or learning from them so that we can do things, informed from a $3.8 billion system rather than our own, um, and so we can look at ant colonies and bees. We can look at all kinds of natural systems, how plants grow, photosynthesis. All of those systems teach us about a way of being that is highly successful.
Mhm.
So one of those systems we can look at is a horse herd. And when you look at a herd of horses, you know instantly the lead by the one who's moving the least. The lead horse is moving the least, and most of the time it's a mare who's in the leadership position. It's not the stallion with his harem of mares. That's actually a misnomer. Um, and um, and so why is it that the lead horse is the one moving the least? Well, it's because for an animal of prey, and we are also animals of prey. We're predators, but we're also animals of prey. Um, Energy is everything. Energy makes the difference between getting away from the lion and not getting away from the lion, or getting to the watering hole or not getting to the watering hole. If a lion expends their energy unnecessarily and doesn't have enough energy to catch the gazelle, he misses lunch. If the gazelle doesn't have enough energy, he becomes lunch. So it's a completely different. If we don't have enough energy as leaders, we become lunch. We become somebody's lunch. And we're born with two things: time, which is a limited resource, and energy, which is a limited resource. And if you think about, like right now, Vicki, if you think about, let's say, picking up the phone and having a conversation with somebody who, for you, is not an enjoyable human. What happens in your body when you think about having to make that action?
Oh yeah, you just completely shut down. You're depleted. You feel like, oh my gosh, I really don't want to have this discussion.
Right,
It sucks the life out of you.
right. If you were a lead mare, you wouldn't pick up the phone
Correct.
because it's right. So, and you are a lead mare, but what I'm saying is the choice that she would make is, I'm not gonna do that. So and so for us as leaders to look at the energy expenditure of a conversation, of a project, and what are our truer yeses? What are our energy giving things that we embark on? And what are our energy depleting things? Now, okay, we have to pay taxes, right? But and things like that, that kind of like, but if most of our life we're dealing with what gives us energy and that uplifts us and brings energy to us, and then the occasional thing that depletes a little energy, that's fine. But what tends to happen is high performing women is we're overextended, we are overcommitted to others, we are
100%.
undercommitted to ourselves. And I find in my coaching with C-suite execs that there is a glass ceiling besides the one that happens by the patriarchy, but there's a glass ceiling of where we have expended ourselves and that we have overcommitted to things that are outside of what really is serving us, and that keeps us from really moving ahead. So just really, again, dropping into our body and paying attention to what is life-giving, what is depleting, and where do I want to expend my energy.
Yeah, no, I love that. I with the clients that I work with, I do a lot on energy leadership, and that is
Mm,
helping them to identify, be very conscious of what's life consuming versus what's life
mhm,
enhancing. Because
mhm.
you're right, like I mean, at some point you hit that wall where you are not giving to yourself the amount of energy you need to have to sustain what you've been doing. And just being conscious of it, and I think, you talk about that a lot in your book, Flying Lead Change, the importance of, conserving energy, but also, the significance of, being aware, being in that state of, I'm going to call it observation of what's happening inside. So that's really important. So if you're not a, because sometimes we're not aware, right? If you're not a developed or highly aware person, what might be some signals or things that would be happening in your experience that would identify you're in that place?
Exhaustion, resentment.
Yeah.
When resentment starts to kick in, cynicism. I would say these are some really big fat red flags. If you're getting to the resentment and cynicism and even hostility, a part of the spectrum, then you've really overstepped some boundaries. But exhaustion, a lack of feeling really inspired, fogginess, would be another. So that's a really, really great question. Yeah.
Those are great signals, because sometimes we know they're there and we don't always acknowledge that's happening, because we put that superhuman cape on and say, oh no, I can't do this. So those are really good. Thank you.
Well, and we, in this world of artificial emergency, right? Where, people expect you to be available by text all the time and on email 24/7. So there's this constant sort of, app in the background of energy expenditure that is really not necessary. And so just learning to take care of ourselves on that level and having boundaries around our space and time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a huge one, especially for women, because we always feel that pull of we've got to be everything to everybody. Just with respect to, what's happening right now in our world, like there's been so much with the pandemic, and now we're starting to go back to work and all these things. What are some, let's say, sage advice that you would share with our audience on our changing world, and, just to help them navigate a bit better?
There's so much to say on that. I believe that we've only just begun to see the changes that are happening. I think we're now on a trajectory of ever increasing dramatic changes, whether that be politically or through the climate or economically. We are really, and socially, with all the social justice, Black Lives Matter, Me Too. I mean, we're really, so it's the return to normal, is a myth. We're headed somewhere, is my thought. And I don't know if we're going to get out of this thing by solving the problems cognitively and logically and rationally. That's sort of what got us into this mess. And right, so I believe that for all of us, particularly as women, I think this is our time to perhaps shine a light on a different way that is very intuitive to us, that's intrinsic to our nature, that has to do with our deep knowing that we are all connected, that what I do does affect you. And so I want to, first of all, validate that we validate ourselves and each other as a step, that we are kind of these amazing beings who navigate the world a little bit differently, and that it's real the way that we do that. That would be the first thing. The second thing is, this is a time of real important self-care, because the more that you do take care of yourself, the better your instrument will be, your body, to serve how you're going to be called upon to serve. The third thing would be to really listen. I think I'm hearing many of my clients that they're being called. There's a shift happening. They can sense something shifting in the wind, and so allow yourself to be open to that calling. There might be a next for you right now that's wanting to happen, that is very much in alignment with who you are and what you want to do in the world. That really speaks to your soul, and gather community around you of people who really see you and really get you and understand you, which is, really what you're doing, Vicki. Just, bringing this community together with your podcast. Um, and lastly, to get into your body, get into nature, slow down, and just start listening. That would be.
Well, you gave me chill bumps, I have to say. I had goosebumps when you were saying that. And so many, oh gosh, Kelly, I so agree with you. I mean, normal is not what people consider to have been our normal, is not where we need to be. We have to create a better world. And so agree that that divine feminine energy and power needs to come to the surface in a very powerful, loving, nurturing way, to help us navigate, what our next steps are. And even the smallest things can be incredibly impactful. And so I'm hoping that our audience hears this, and that, don't think that just because something's small that it's not important, because it is important, especially right now. Yeah.
I 1,000% agree. Yeah. In fact, if I've learned anything from the horses and doing the work with people, is the smaller the better, actually. And I don't know why that is. I don't really quite understand the physics of it, but and imagine if you're doing one small thing and I'm doing one small thing and someone else is doing one small thing, and we create a web between us somehow of this knowing how to be. That could have significant impact in a way that is deeply trustworthy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that also goes back to what you were saying earlier about how we're all connected, and what you do and what I do impacts each other, right? And so collectively we can create something absolutely spectacular. And I know a lot of people, I'm not dismissing what's happened over the last, 16, 18 months. It's been hard on a lot of people, but
Yes, it has.
There's been a lot of gifts during this time too, to help us realize those hamster wheels we've been running on. So thank you for sharing that. That's just so you and I could talk all day. But
I know.
I don't want to be selfish. So I am going to open it up and see if our audience has any burning questions. I'm sure there are. So feel free to turn on your video and turn off your mute, so that you can ask Kelly what that burning question might be. We're fortunate to have her here with us today. And Kelly, thank you. Like, your message is exactly what we needed to hear today. So who has a question?
You.
My pleasure. Let's see if they're going to be shy or somebody's going to stay.
Hi, it's Geraldine.
Hey, Geraldine.
Hi, Geraldine.
Hello, very nice to meet you. You made me think of something with the idea that something small is all you need to do. Ironically, it's the something smalls that are seemingly taking us down. So a virus is very small, it took us down. When you're at work, somebody expresses a point of view that, in the scheme of things is very small, and it takes us down. We seem to have no trouble when something small takes us down, recognizing how something small can take us down, but somehow we seem to have trouble understanding that something small can take us up and take us out. How do you help people understand that the gravity of that works both ways? How do you make them change that lens to say, well, one tiny thing happened to me and oh my God, the sky is falling. But one tiny thing I can make an influence or I can make a difference in is as significant. Somehow people don't understand that's also significant, that the small is not only the thing that takes you down, it's the thing that takes you up. How do you help people see that?
Such a great question. I can tell you how I help people to see that. But first of all, it's so easy for our mind to not understand the significance of small things because, we have Hollywood and everything is done in grand gestures. And we have this culture where, this movie star culture and star culture. And, we celebrate people who do ginormous things and best-selling authors, and so it's just there. It's part of the soup that we're in the headwinds of. But when I'm working with whether it be people on my team or a staff member or a client, I always aspire to pause and show them when first of all my action steps that I invite people to do are really teeny tiny ones. And when they do them, then they get to see for themselves the outcome. And so we'll deliberately take time to look and see, like, do you see when this happened and this subtle shift happened, and connect the dots to the impact that it had on their family, on their team, on their project, and to track that. It's often just a matter of again, slowing down and noticing these things rather than just brushing off and going on to the next thing. And I find that helps a lot, that people build a trust for small things and trust that doing things incrementally. We talk, breadcrumbs, tiny bites, things like that they trusted after a while.
The thing that shifted me in the last few months in particular, there was some pivotal moment that happened in January, or a bunch of moments, I don't know, was that the small things had to matter to me first. I don't need an affirmation or a recognition from others. The small things mattered. The most important affirmation and recognition came from me. And every day, if I took a moment to breathe, like you said, taking the time to find peace and taking time to make time, it's only me actually that has to be super happy with either the one small thing or an accumulation of small things. And I say in the last 8 months, to Vicky's point, I looked back, especially in the last few weeks, another pivotal thing happened. I looked back and I thought, well, where I've been successful navigating change is finding peaceful things. I wish I had a horse. I wanted one since I was 5, but it's come through in other things. Somebody's dog, somebody's a walk in the park. Finally, they opened the pool at my place. I've been swimming every day. It's been water. I think the last 18 months, everybody who's recognized their own affirmations and their own ability to recognize their own gifts, talents, and capabilities are leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else looking for it from someone else. And that's what 18 months has taught me.
Yes. Yeah.
And
really
that's
wonderful.
what I'm carrying forward. And as a result of that, in light of also what you've been saying, is maintaining your energy, managing your visibility to others, giving, power to others who don't deserve it. No mare does that. No horse does that. So no, it couldn't be a more timely lecture. Thank you very much. But
yeah.
You made me think
Wonderful.
of that. You made me think of small things in a different way. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Geraldine. Thanks for your question. Anybody else? I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but Ms. Lipinski, do you have any questions? So Tuesday says, thank you, Kelly, for your tips. I need to hear that. I often think that I haven't accomplished, can't see the rest of it. Accomplished much, but didn't realize all the little things I have done mean something too. Absolutely. And thank you for teaching about embracing the nature. Every time I see flowers and palm trees make me happy, and I didn't know I'm actually connecting to them in a spiritual way. Beautiful, Tuesday. Yeah,
beautiful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So true. So true. And we take for granted, I think all of us do, we take for granted, those moments in life where we could be celebrating or just recognizing and acknowledging, as Kelly was saying earlier, when you go inside and see how it makes you feel when you're in the forest or you're by the lake or by the ocean. That's why so many people flock to the oceans, right, for their holidays, because that's sort of rejuvenates the soul. It gives you that opportunity to really connect, which is awesome.
Well, and in in the field of sort of somatic work and neuroscience work, as it applies to sort of embodied awareness, we call them glimmers. So glimmers are these little moments that show up that are important to recognize. And so when you have a glimmer of that homecomingness or that at homeness, wherever you are, whether you're on a subway or you're with your dog or you're in a conversation and you just notice, oh wow, there's that moment of home, of deep well-being. Notice those glimmers and pay attention to them and hang out with them for an extra couple of moments. That's actually a really significant thing that you can do. Again, it's this tiny thing that you can do. You're looking for a glimmer and you're hanging out with it for another couple of moments. That's pretty tiny. But if you do that as a practice each day, so many things shift for you internally. So
yeah, such a great point. So Kelly, just on that thought, sorry, something just came to my mind. So also it's when you can help somebody else recognize it, right? So if somebody else is, they're saying something, it's helping them to maybe reframe that in a different way, so that that gives them that moment to go, oh wow, I didn't even think about it that way. I think that that can also be powerful because it helps you build your muscle with respect to how you see things, because we have a choice, right? We can be happy, we can be sad, but we have a choice in how we choose to see things. Sorry, that just came out.
Yeah, absolutely. As long as we're not, sometimes we're trying to assist someone with a reframe because we're uncomfortable with their reality, which if we're doing it with that agenda, they're going to smell that and it's not going to go over well. But if we're totally comfortable with their reality because we're just centered in ourselves and we're offering it, then it really works well.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, awesome.
I would love to make a comment, Vicki, if I may.
Yes, please.
There were two books that started me on my way. One was When the Body Says No, because I was ill, and I was ill because I was stuck and I was grieving a great loss. And my body said no and caused me to pay attention. And it led me to your book, Kelly. And it was the beginning between Dr. Gabor Mate and you. It was the beginning of an unbelievably successful journey for me over the past 2 years.
Wow.
And the reason Vicki knows that I am quite loquacious, but the reason I'm being very quiet is because it is extremely emotional for me to hear you and to be reminded of the success that I've had in accessing all of those parts of my emotional life and my physical life. So I just want to thank you and to encourage anyone who's listening to read this book.
Oh,
and
thank
then
you so much.
and then to do the work. Because
I'm so happy to hear your journey. I'm so happy for you. So happy for you, and congratulations.
Thank you. I will add one last thing, and that is during this time I was having nightmares about being lost, could never find my way home. And I had no money, and I had no hotel key to if I was in a foreign city. I had no car. I had no way of getting home. And I work with a wonderful homeopath, And these dreams kept coming up. And I finally, this is serendipity, by the way, I saw something on social media somewhere, and it's a quote by Emily McDonald. And it says, finding yourself is not really how it works. You aren't a $10 bill in last winter's coat pocket. You are also not lost. Your true self is right there, buried under cultural conditioning, other people's opinions, and inaccurate conclusions you drew as a kid that became your beliefs about who you are. Finding yourself is actually returning to yourself and unlearning and excavation, remembering who you were before the world got its hands on you. And at that moment, I realized that's what my dreams were about in terms of coming home, finding me.
Yeah. Beautiful. Wow. I just got chills, like really major chills. And I'm so glad you brought up this piece about, you know, the cultural scripts and the cultural editors. All of us have our cultural editors. They're our parents, our teachers, our policymakers, our pastors, and Hollywood, and they have scripts, and the scripts say, you are this, you are that, you should be this, you should be that, life is like this, at 65 you retire, and you know, as women you can't hammer a nail, or whatever it is all these scripts are. And a really great exercise is to sit down and write those scripts, like start to hang out with, well, what are the scripts that are sort of here that are driving me that actually I don't need to follow anymore, that have nothing to do with me. And just once you see them, you can't unsee them, and you see them for what they are, and they're just a script. There was no burning bush that said this is exactly how it works in the world. They're just a script. And then we took it to be true. So thank you for bringing that up. Yeah. And underneath those scripts is you, who you are, how you live, what you live by.
Your real self.
Yep.
Exactly.
Welcome home. Welcome home.
Well
I'm
done.
really happy for you. Really happy for you.
Thank you.
So I want to thank everyone. Jill, thank you for your comments. They're beautiful, and for sharing your story as well. I've seen that journey with you for the last 2 years, and you've done remarkable. It's been beautiful to observe and to just share in that with you. And Kelly, I want to thank you. Oh my gosh, you have been amazing. I want to remind our audience, you can, pick up Flying Lead Change, which is Kelly Wendorf's book.
Thank you.
It is life-changing, no question. It really makes you, think about things differently, and how we connect with ourselves, how we connect with nature. Like it really hit home with me as well. And Jill shared that with me. So I'm super grateful to that, and grateful to you for, accepting our invite to join the podcast today. And so
yeah, thank you so very much, Vicki. It's been such a pleasure. And I wanted to share, if I may, that I'm starting an online class in October. Actually, there's 2 online classes happening, and I can't remember the date of the other one, but one is an 8-week class that takes you through the book and all the exercises. And it's called The Wisdom of Thriving, and you'll see it on my website. But I would love to have some people in that class. We did one a few months ago, and it was amazing and so great to engage in all of the work together. And then another class I'm doing is a 12-week assertiveness training for empaths. Which has been amazing. I have to say, we're halfway through the first one, and it's blowing my mind, and people are like really making some huge strides. So yeah, I just love to invite everyone to those 2 classes.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. That's true. Oh
yeah.
Well, Kelly, I want to thank you again from the bottom of my heart.
Vicki.
It's been such a pleasure having you here, and maybe we'll have you back on another time, and we'll talk about this, the empath, the assertiveness for empath.
So, yes. Thank you so much, Vicki. It's just a beautiful space that you hold.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to read quickly. Laura says, thank you for your inspiration and wisdom, Kelly. Fascinating to listen to you. Just received your book and can't wait to read it.
Yay.
Yay.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Okay.
So I want to share with everyone, our next podcast is on August the 12th. We will be featuring Porter. My apologies, Jackie Porter. And Jackie is a wealth management expert. She is tons of fun and really takes the angst out of investing for women and helping us to understand how we plan for ourselves to live a longer and better life. You'll also see our post on our social media channels where she has a great quiz, which will help you identify which Sex in the City character financially you most resemble. It's
Love
a lot of fun. Yes, it's a lot of fun. So hopefully you can join us for that. And I just want to thank everyone, for being here today. Time is precious, and we really appreciate you joining Kelly and I today to have this conversation. So thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you on our next live podcast. Take care.